Hi, this is Natalie Gevinti from Unlimited Mindset Solutions, and I'm here with Kerry Allday. Hi, Kerry, how are you?
Hello, Natalie. Thank you for inviting me here today.
Thanks for your time, Kerry. Really appreciate and looking forward to hearing your view on leadership. So, Kerry entered the world of direct marketing in the early 80s as direct marketing manager for Royal Guide Dogs and contact center manager for Switzerland Insurance, while also completing a certificate in personal management. And then in the late 80s, you spoke at numerous marketing and direct marketing conferences, and you held senior positions in a number of marketing agencies before starting your own business called Data Active, in 1989.
Yes.
And then in 2007, you acquired direct response from the Clemenger?
Clemenger is a well-known
Clemenger
large
Group.
advertising agency worldwide, yes.
Wow. So for about 8 years, you had your own business. That was your first business?
Yes.
Was that also your first experience in leading other people with Data Active?
No. I have to credit one role I had, which was Royal Guide Dogs, where I actually, at the age of 22, had a team of 80 people and was pretty much thrown in the deep end with that one. So I learnt a lot through the management of various personality types, doing various roles. I think that you learn more from low-level staff in people management than you ever learn from high-level staff, because low-level staff come with all the challenges of trying to motivate them, trying to make sure they've got the care factor and the ethics and the motivation. And I had a large contingent of not only lower-level staff but also part-time and casual staff, which are, again, very challenging groups of people.
The commitment is not the same.
It's not the same as it is from people in full-time and in particular middle management roles.
Yes. So you mentioned earlier that you learn a lot from managing people and from the people that you manage. Now, I wonder if there is a person that you can name who has had a tremendous impact on you as a leader, maybe someone who has been a mentor to you and who was your manager.
Yes, there are three people that spring to mind in my background, all of them men. Unfortunately, I'd love to say there was a dynamic woman in there, but essentially I suppose I come from an era where the majority of leaders, and I mean the vast majority of leaders, were males in those roles. So from one of them, I saw not so much a leadership ability, although I did later on see that, but a man called Tim Buchanan, who is well known as the founder of Buchanan Group, who is well known for the brand power advertisements that everybody has seen on television. And he was inspirational in terms of giving your own business a go and being a lateral thinker and developing your inner entrepreneur. And I certainly saw that with him, and I certainly experienced later on through stories from both him and his team that he had the ability to empower people to step outside their comfort zone and create ideas, and he would allow people to put forth their ideas and actually take them to fruition, which is one of the marks of a great leader. There was also another man, Brett Reckner, who I actually ended up having children with, and though he's no longer in the world today, he passed away sadly 12 years ago, he had the ability to build a team of people who were highly motivated and wanted to go above and beyond their role. And he had that X factor that people were loyal to him and wanted to do more than was required, which included working outside of the hours they worked, going that extra yard, not being sensitive to lines of demarcation, but assisting their colleagues to make things happen. He had that uncanny ability, and it's hard to know how he could do that, but I think a lot of it was based on expectation. I think you create expectations as a leader, and if you communicate those expectations, people will rise to that. He was very effective in communicating his expectations, which included not being average and definitely being loyal. So I did learn those attributes from him. And the third person was another entrepreneur who was very good at identifying people out there in average roles, often government or often large corporate, where he saw that they had the skill set and had the knowledge from having been trained in those environments, but were not able to realise their potential because of the constraints in the environments they were in. So his leadership skill was recruitment. He recruited people that had the knowledge, had the potential, but were not in an environment where they could realise the fullness of that. So I took that tip, if you like, from him as a leader, that he would recruit the potential. So there were the three aspects of leadership that I gained from three entirely different people, not just one single mentor in leadership.
So what would you say, even more specifically, are the most important decisions that you make as a leader of your organizations?
The most important decisions, I think, and they do change throughout the process of leadership. The decisions you make in the early days are often different to the ones you make in the later stages of your leadership role or career. And nowadays, my leadership is in allowing people to run the business. And I have moved myself more into a solutions provider, if you like. So whenever they have challenges, I coach them through those solutions. But fundamentally, I allow them to be the leaders of the organisation and the leaders of their own teams. And I strongly believe that that permission makes people push themselves to greater limits than if you spend a lot of time sitting with them and nurturing them. I do believe in autonomy as a powerful tool, but when people are stuck, I believe in also being available to them and working through that with them. That also comes with the voice of experience, and you can't actually do that when you're very young as a leader. When you're a very young leader, you tend to be more of a motivator and you use your energy more when you're young as a leader. When you're older, you tend to use your wisdom more. So I've gone from using my energy as a leader to more of my wisdom. And in between being a younger leader and an older leader, you just use a mix of those two, and it just balances either way. So, and if you are not providing enough energy as an older leader, then it's your role then to add that ingredient into the mix however you like, whether it be through consultants that come in intermittently and provide that injection of energy and enthusiasm, or whether or not you deliberately recruit a member of your team that brings that to the table. So that is what I tend to do. I will give them plenty of freedom and watch closely with what happens. But always, I have an open door, and they can call me anytime, day or night, weekends, anytime during the day. I will always talk to somebody about a problem, and they're always walking in my office, and I believe a leader must have that. I don't believe a leader should close their door or be permanently occupied with shifting things from the in tray to the out tray. I do have a story of when I was a young manager with Switzerland Insurance, and managing director there walked into my office one day and said, "How are things going?" And I said, "Great." And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, well, I've got this pile to go through. I'm nearly done." And he put his hand on one side of my desk and literally swept his arm across my desk to the other end, and everything that was on my desk went on the floor. And in shock, I looked at him and he said, "That's not management." And that experience has stuck with me for the whole of my career. So that my desk is pretty close to the most empty in the whole place, because I don't spend my time doing paperwork. I spend my time talking to people about what they're doing, what challenges they've got, and what my experience can do to help them through that.
So that must indeed have been an incredible experience.
It was. It certainly was quite a shock. My facial expression must have been priceless.
So, in light of this experience and all the things that you've learned through the people you've managed, through the people who have managed you, what would you say is one characteristic that every leader should possess?
Well, I think every leader needs to be a thinker. The most powerful, if you like, attribute of a leader is the ability to think. People at the top, it doesn't matter whether they're energetic or lazy, but they've got to be able to think things through. Some of the best leaders I've ever known have been quite lazy people, but awesome thinkers. Mm. And then underneath them, they have the people that are energetic and good thinkers. And then below them, they have the highly energetic people. So I think as a leader, if you're full of energy but not a good thinker, it's not going to be enough. You've got to be able to look at what's going on around you and think about optimising the resources you've got, the facilities you've got, the potential you've got, and the ability to create a vision, to impart it, and to establish what everybody's role is in going towards that vision. So therefore, thinking, the ability to sit and think those things through has got to be your paramount.
And on the opposite hand, what is the one mistake that you witness leaders making more frequently than others?
Well, look, I think a lot of the time when there's economic stress on an organisation, it's probably the most challenging thing for a leader, because it's such a negative thing to have to address. And a lot of the time, leaders almost want to get it over and done with as quickly as possible and then move on. So sometimes I think there's a lack of thought that goes into who stays and who goes, and it's almost, and I've seen this happen a lot, who's willing to go? Who of you are willing to go to make life easier for our organisation? And I think that's a mistake, because often the ones that are willing to go are the ones that know they won't have any trouble getting another job, or perhaps pursuing self-employment, or buying their own business. So you actually end up losing some of your best skill set, whereas the leader should actually look at the pivotal members of their team and the best people of their team and working on keeping those, and then going the hard yards of getting rid of maybe someone who's been there for 15 years and has ceased to contribute but costs a lot in long service leave and all those sorts of things. So I think sometimes the people that are allowed to leave an organisation in downsizing actually take a lot of the skills that the organisation needs with them.
Very interesting. There's a lot of things to be said for culture and vision and core values in an organisation. How do you First of all, what is the most important for you in your organization? Would it be the mission, the core values, or the vision?
It's a really tough question, and I think that most people would say straight away vision. I'd be surprised if that wasn't the resoundingly largest response there, because people will say, well, if there isn't vision, there can't be anything else. But I have a slightly different view in that I think core values, which is the, and I have to admit to having, through various leadership meetings and so on, the vision, mission and core values cocktail, if you like, for leadership comes up quite a lot. And I would have to say for my business, in all sincerity, that core values has been the foundation for it. My vision has changed many times, and being a small business, I believe adaptability is a huge player in small business. So often the vision is a bit of a moving goal, especially if you are an opportunistic entrepreneur. That is somewhat different for corporates who are much slower moving and tend to have a more consistent vision. But core values in our organisation have been around managing a group of people who must operate as a team. So it's very much been the Coxed Quad or the Coxed 8, because they all need to work in sync with each other, literally in a contact centre environment. That's mandatory. And the core values have always been to have a desire to please the customer, whether it's our customers' or our own clients. You have to have that value of wanting to please and do whatever is required to A, keep the customer, and B, keep the customer happy and make them a hero within their own organisation. So without that core value, it would be pointless having any missions, and it really comes down to a fundamental work ethic. The core values and work ethic are very closely aligned. So I choose core values as the fundamental. Yes, we have vision. How good I am at conveying that sometimes, and how often it changes. Well, over 25 years of being in my own business, it has changed a fair amount.
Excellent. So how do you communicate the core values to your employees?
I communicate core values consistently through the people I refer to as the key influencers within the organisation, and they're not necessarily the managers. In fact, one of our key influencers is actually the bookkeeper. Everybody deals with the payroll lady. All the customers deal with the lady who debt collects. So I use her, and that's not a very good term to say use her, but I've identified her as a key influencer, even though she's actually not a manager and is in fact, a relatively low-level role. So you have to pick those influencers within your organisation, and you have to consistently communicate the theme through to them. And trust me, it gets through to everybody. If you actually try to constantly hold gatherings and talk to everybody, I find that people get bored with those sorts of meetings, and they see them as a little bit of rah-rah. But if you actually use those points of influence within your organisation, those people, often unknowingly, will do that role for you. I also would cite a story years ago when I was running a call centre, and I was sent to the UK and the USA to look at contact centre management and software. And one of the places I went to in the UK, their team in the contact centre, before work every day, the 5 minutes before work started, would stand around in a group and sing a song. And the song was written by somebody there, and it changed every now and then, but for the most part it was the same for a good 6 months. And they sang this song, and this was in the UK, a traditionally conservative environment. In the US you would expect to see that everywhere because that's how they are, but this was in the UK. Well, my boss at the time said, I want you to go back to Australia and make that happen. And I'm thinking, coming from a very conservative background, oh my goodness, there is no way I could do anything like that without feeling like an idiot. How immature, and so on and so on. So I had to overcome my own perceived negativity towards that concept. First thing I did was go back to Australia, sit behind my desk and think, well, how am I going to make this happen? Because it was a directive. I had no choice. So I didn't necessarily overcome my negatives about it, but the thing that I did was I looked at a team that I had, and I had about 50 or 60 people in the team, and I asked my supervisor to find me a musician or two within my team. And they found this young guy who was a musician, played guitar and so on. And I called him into my office and I said, I want you to help me make this happen. I want you to help me write a song and a tune, and we are going to introduce that to the team and we're going to sing it for the first 5 minutes of every day. So we did that, and when we introduced the concept to people, anybody over the age of about 40 was horrified and thought, this is ridiculous, this is childish, this is American, and so on. However, I said, we're doing it, whether you like it or not. And an interesting thing took place. Everybody started the day, oh well, let's have a coffee, let's delay going to our desk, we just have to get on with the day's work. But as soon as this singing was introduced, the first thing that happened on everybody's faces was the biggest smiles. They were standing around in a big circle and singing. Now, if that doesn't bring a smile to your face, nothing will. So everybody went to their desks, and whether they were smiling because they enjoyed it, because they thought it was ridiculous, because they thought the person opposite them looked funny singing, it didn't matter. Everybody had a smile on their face, and they went to their desk laughing and joking to start the day. So it was incredibly effective, and that was a big challenge I had, to get over my own perceived negatives, to identify a point of influence within the organisation that could facilitate it because he believed in that kind of thing, and then to have everybody on board with that. And then the rest of the organisation that wasn't part of my division came to look at what was going on, because it actually got a lot of word of mouth going on and a lot of drumbeat going on about what was going on in that division over there. So it was a very interesting time in my leadership career.
What a brilliant and inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'd love if maybe you would like to share an advice for someone that's going into leadership position for the first time.
So I've also had some interesting experiences going into my own leadership for the first time, and one of the things in building a team is you cannot always bring everybody on board.
Okay.
You are often going to inherit a team that for various reasons will be obstacles to you taking the team where you want them to go. It could be because they can't be bothered, they're at the tail end of their career, they don't want any trouble, they liked the former boss better, or they weren't engaged even then and they have no intention of changing the way they are. So the first thing every leader must do is identify those types of sentiments within their team. You must know who's with you and who's against you. And there are people who are fence sitters and can be converted, but there are people that you will not convert. And if you believe in yourself as a leader, that's fine. And if you believe you can convert everybody, that's fine. But a smart leader will always realise when there is somebody who is not ever going to be on board and they cannot be retained. So you must identify each of your team members and what category they fall into. And if you have any that are not going to get across the line, then you must remove them from the team, because they will either retard your progress or stop it altogether. So that would be my first point of advice for any leader going into a new role. Now, it doesn't mean you rush in there and instantly decide someone doesn't like you and therefore eliminate them. You have to think about it. And if you actually talk to them a lot and you talk to people and you get the input, I am a great believer that a team wants to survive and thrive. So the team themselves will know who it is who's going to hold the whole team back. You need to create an environment where they feel that they can help you make that team successful. And I often find that when a team is struggling with something, that if I open that door, they will tell me where they think the weakness is, because they personally want to succeed and they know what is stopping them from succeeding. So I think you've got to open that communication channel, whether it is a direct channel or a stealthy channel. Then you must open that channel and you must identify those people who are not going to be part of the progress of the team.
Great advice. This has been really insightful, Kerry. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your energy with us on this interview. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, Natalie. Thank you, and best wishes to everyone.
Thank you.